Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another one of our summer webinar series. Today, we will have Mike Plakowski from AkzoNobel. He will be discussing paint application and just going over different things with the substrates and paint application best practices, do's and don'ts, and how to achieve flawless results. Mike?
Hello, coming to you from Portland, Oregon this morning, from Denko, Portland. So it's good to have everybody on. I think that for the sake of time, we'll try to get any questions you have at the end. Let's do those at the end, and Tara will help with that. She's going to help navigate that. So again, I'm Mike Plakowski with AkzoNobel. I live in Weatherford, Texas. This is my 13th year with Akzo in paint. Prior to that, I was in paint for a while with another company, and before that with Interstate Batteries. So distribution and it's kind of the background I have. But today we're going to talk strictly about paint application and what mainly, really and truly, the basics that if you're already a shop using Grip Guard or another product, these principles apply to anything that really is. I'll tell you right up front, I'm very honest and pretty brutal when it comes to the paint part, because it's my passion. It's what we do, and there's kind of two ways to do it: the right way and the wrong way. So we'll kind of see examples of both of those. I don't know who on here has uses AkzoNobel paint, or if you're a sales rep or a manager in one of the distribution networks. I would assume that since we are a tube light, that most of you are familiar with AkzoNobel. We've been in business for quite some time. And since 2014, we've introduced a product called EFX. About 5 years ago, we rebranded to Grip Guard. So AkzoNobel has many paint lines. Grip Guard is for the sign segment. So kind of today what we'll go over is, and this would be 5 hours long if we touched and got into every one of these. But color retrieval, substrates, the 6 Ps, primers, the different qualities of paint, choosing the right spray gun, mixing it, application, and dry versus cure. And I kind of put this together. Those of you who are from sign shops, it happens every day. This has to go today, or this has to go by 4 o'clock. That's when problems arise, when it gets to paint. Everything else is done, it gets there, and that's when the problems really can start if we, for the most part, don't follow some basic principles of what needs to be done. So we'll get right into it. Really and truly, the 6 Ps, there's more Ps, but I have to take them out because my boss is on here, and he doesn't like me saying that. But proper prep prevents poor paint performance. The key to painting, the number one thing, is preparation, right? And I'm not talking about get to work on time, have your coffee, do everything you have to do, and then go in there and paint. I'm talking about preparing what needs to be done to have a successful paint job done on a sign that's got to go. Because I know in the shops, whether it's the production manager, the owner, whomever it is, where am I at on this? Where's it got to go? And paint always seems to be, even in the best situations, it's a bottleneck, right? You have all this stuff and there's 2 paint booths, and we've got to get it through there. So the 6 Ps, the 7 Ps, and the 8 Ps are my pet peeves. It starts in the beginning when you walk in the morning. Your filters, how you clean it, how it's sanded or prepared for cleaner. Before you paint, you're going to blow it off, wipe it down, and tack it off, right? These are all basic principles. Those things right there are key. If it's prepped right, it will paint right. Okay. I can't stress this part enough. This could be an entire webinar on preparation, and hopefully as this goes on, we're going to try to do some live videos showing some of the procedures to do that. But in the beginning, we'll just start with this, and you're more than welcome to take this and use it. But this is the most important part of it. Right here is the prep. So when it comes to filters, make sure they're clean. So when you walk into a shop or you walk into your paint area, if they don't look green or gray, a light gray, if the air's not flowing through them, don't call me when the paint doesn't work. That's just how it is. It's not going to work. Okay. Airflow is key in any paint that you might use, whether it be Matthews. I think Tube Light, we have Matthews and AkzoNobel. It doesn't matter which one, but you've got to have clean filters. That means where the air comes into a paint booth and where the air exits the paint booth. Okay. Number one. Number two, the cleaning, what we clean with. A number of you may be on here, and I would ask you, what cleaners do you use? Most of you might say acetone or lacquer thinner. That's bad news. Okay, that's bad news right there. There are cleaners designed for properly preparing a panel to spray some type of primer, adhesion promoter, and then paint on top of it. We'll talk about those here in a little bit. Sanding, there's all kinds of ideas, all kinds of theories on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Well, we only use 80 grit. Well, we only use 600 grit. It doesn't really matter to me what you use. Is that panel a canvas that's ready to paint on? Like Bob the painter, he paints on a clean white canvas every time he starts a portrait. That's what we need to have when we paint these signs. It needs to be clean. It needs to be a canvas ready to accept, whether it be primer, etch primer, adhesion promoter, anything, and then a top coat of paint on it, or a base coat of paint and then clear coat. Number one, for the longevity of the material, right? It's gonna last longer. It's gonna adhere, but it's done the right way. And there's 14 other webinars we can have about how paint works and all of that, but we'll get to that later. I put on here to blow them off. I've been in some paint booths that if you turned air on and blew the sign off, you'd blow more dirt on it than you would get off the panel. That gets back into the cleanliness part of your area, taking pride in where you work, and not whip, but wipe. Make sure that we're wiping those down, and then tack cloths. Tack cloths are key in anything. If your wife asked you to redo a piece of furniture and you use a tack cloth, you're going to have some issues. She's not going to like it when you're done, right? You're going to do it again. Same thing with a sign. And I know they go 80 feet in the air, and there's going to be little pieces of trash here and there. The bottom line is, do it, prep it right, and it will paint right. Okay. So having said that, let's look at some of these primers. There's different types of primers. There's etch primers, epoxies, direct to metal type primers, urethane primers, sealers, and waterborne primers. Okay. Each of these have a function in what we do in the sign business. Generally, an etch primer, since we do so much aluminum work, of mill finish aluminum, etch primers are primarily what's used out there. Here recently, there's more of a big push on epoxies. Well, when I hear the word epoxy, I think of glue. Everything sticks to glue, right? If you're not prepped right and you put epoxy down, you're going to have a dirty paint job when it's done, and you can't see it. You won't see it till it's painted, especially black or a high gloss type color, which we use about 5% in our business. The rest of it's satin, but you'll still see that. Direct to metal primers, a lot of steel, a lot of poles, cabinet frames, big cabinet frames that are steel. Direct to metal primers are good in that arena. Urethane primers and sealers. Some of you get signs in that have to be re-imaged or refurbished. Okay. Some of you strip those all the way down. That's a little dangerous too, using the chemicals and sanding all that paint off, and it's all getting in the floor. And then the end of the day, the guy comes by and blows everything to one area. That's getting everywhere, right? Urethane primers and sealers help to give you that clean canvas. And there's one thing you need to always remember on a refinish of a sign that's an old one that you're redoing. Paint is its own best adhesion promoter. So if you don't cut through with sandpaper or however you're doing it, you can do a pretty good job of repainting that. But It's always good to put a nice clean backside down, okay? A nice clean palette to paint on, and that's what urethane primers and sealers are for. And then for those of you who live in areas that are VOC regulated, containment areas, things like that, zero VOC, federal wind tunnels, where places are built, these waterborne primers work very well. In my opinion, to the right there, Bright White HF primer is one of the best primers that AkzoNobel provides for us. It's a very good product. Now, you know as well as I do, if there's solvent on these ones on the left, that's going to dry faster. The waterborne primers are not going to dry as fast. But all of your oxide type primers, your 1K stuff, something that's not catalyzed to harden, those are very good primers for what we do in our business. But a lot of times it's because of the speed in which they dry, in which you can put a top coat on. But those are just some of these pictures here. And this is just our products. There's a number of products out there. I may be talking to some folks that don't necessarily use AkzoNobel or Grip Guard. You can, but I understand. And it's everyone has these. It's just a matter of what application you need at the time. Okay. Qualities of paint. So we've prepped it. That's done the right way. We followed the 6 Ps. We've primed it. And now we're going to choose what type of paint we're going to put down. What's the top coat going to be? What color is it going to be for another term? They're single stage top coats, which is in our industry, that's primarily what is used. Single stage top coats. So they're generally getting some Pantone or Sherwin-Williams color or 3M vinyl color, something like that. We're matching that color and they're spraying it down. There are urethane base coats, which is basically base coat, clear coat. So kind of like the paint that you would use to paint a car or a bus or a truck. Okay, you put a color down, and to protect that finish, you'd put a clear coat over it. Okay, there's 1K products. 1K means it's not catalyzed. The previous two that I just talked about, single stage top coat and urethane base coats, those must be catalyzed or clear coated to survive. They have to harden up. Whereas a 1K product is like an air dry, like you go to Home Depot and get a spray can of Krylon. That's 1K. Okay. There is a need for that in our business. There's a lot of folks that do it, especially some of these amusement parks, some of the malls. Of course, they're a dying breed that people shop in. Some of those areas, there's light standards and a ton of decorative lighting that people walk under. There's people that will go out there and spray or roll 1K products all day long because no matter what they do, it's not going to survive. There's people hitting them, picking on them, spraying on, graffitiing them, putting gum on them, whatever it is. That's what they'll use that for. And then, of course, water-based. And hopefully in my lifetime in the sign business with AkzoNobel, and I probably can speak for any of the paint companies that are in the sign business, water-based is boy, that's going to be tough because you have to dehydrate that paint to dry it. You have to have a very clean area to spray it in. It's difficult to use, and quite frankly, it's way too expensive for what we would need it for. So those are just some of the different qualities of top coats that we would see. Anybody has any questions, we can talk more about those. This is the part I like about all of this. So just because it says paint application, there's so many things to consider and automatically know that it's done before you even start painting. And one of my pet peeves is mixing paint in the mix room. If your mix room is clean and organized, you're probably going to end up having a pretty good chance of having a good paint job. And some of you on this webinar know that when you walk into the paint room, it doesn't look like what you see there. You don't, and again, the picture on the left, there's not a ton of shops that have that capability. That's our training center in Fort Worth, Texas. But the big picture there with the green back wall, that's a mixing room in one of our largest sign manufacturers. That's how we start out, and believe it or not, it looks like that today. That's one of the things that I think, for the most part, when I was a rep, if I walked in somewhere and I saw an organized paint room, I got excited because I knew everything else was going to be okay. But there's some I've walked into and I've left with paint stuck on me and I didn't touch paint. They're nasty. They're gross. You're going to see some fun pictures here in a little bit. So you won't have many issues if the paint area is maintained, organized, clean. It's paint. There's going to be paint drops on the floor everywhere. It's going to happen. There's going to be a spill that happens. It's the nature of our business and the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, they never get cleaned up, and it just keeps building and building and building. Depending on how much you drop on the floor, sometimes it looks pretty cool as a floor coating, but it's going to stick to you. It's gross. So we want to make sure and pay attention that where we start in that process with mixing paint, we have a good clean area to do it. Okay. Choosing the right spray gun. It's funny, today I'm in Portland and walked into a place, and if I walk in and I see paint guns from Harbor Freight or from Walmart, Home Depot, I almost got to turn around and leave, right? I mean, you built this beautiful sign and we're spraying some, and all paint's expensive and it all stinks. It's all gross and nasty. We're spraying it with a Harbor Freight paint gun. Okay. There are options for you out there, and there's options from the highest end, which are fine. And there's options from a nominal end that do the job fantastic. Everything I show you here is obviously something we recommend to get the job done right the first time, instead of having to go over stuff. And once one of the, I call them the aftermarket or cheap guns, breaks, you're done. You just got to go get another one. I'm not a fan, right? If your paint gun's clean and your mixing room's clean, I'm almost there. I almost have this sign ready today, and I've got a clean paint job. The equipment is key. It is key. The equipment. There's so many different types of paint guns. You have primer guns. You have different types of paint guns. You have pressure pot paint guns. You have pleural cavity paint guns, electrostatic paint guns. There's so many different apparatuses. The best investment that any owner of a shop could make, a sign manufacturer, and he's painting a lot of signs, is make sure that the painters, your paint guys, have the right stuff to do it with. You can really kind of tell who's a good painter. They'll walk in and they'll have their own stuff. They will have their own paint guns. So choosing the right one, there's so many different factors. Another webinar on these 6 would take us a couple hours to go through, because they do different things. They just do different things. At the end of the day, it's creating a finish that is, number one, applied correctly and is going to be long lasting. And again, when I walk into a shop, these are the things I automatically look for. I will look at the paint room. Is it a complete mess, a disaster? Does it look like a tornado went through, or is it organized? Are the paint guns clean? This slide here, sometimes this is what we walk in and see. You'll see a scale that you don't even realize really what that is on the left. The mixing sticks, oh my gosh, you couldn't mix anything with that because you can't get them out of there. They're stuck. And then there's a nice little paint gun on the right. These are actual pictures from a shop that we went into and took pictures of. So I don't think I need to talk about it too much, but it drives me crazy to see this when I walk into a paint shop and they've called me to drive wherever I have to go. Being in Texas, generally it takes a little bit to get there. I walk into something like this and they're having a paint problem. It makes me just want to leave, right? Because you can't teach this. You can show them, but you gotta be able to want to do it. So this is probably one slide that'll stick with you, because I know some of you have walked in, maybe not to this degree, but you've seen scales, mixing sticks in a half-filled plastic thing with thinner in it, and these paint guns that you can't even see what color it originally started out as. So what's the most important thing to do before applying paint to any surface? Blow it off, tack it off, and paint it. It's really simple. A lot of guys overthink this stuff. There's just way too much put into it. It's not necessary. If you did everything in the beginning that we've talked about, right before you paint it, you just make sure it's dry and clean. It's your painter's responsibility to make sure it's paintable. Okay. If it's not, send it back to where it came from. But that's the key to this whole thing. If I'm the painter and you're paying me to paint these signs, I'm going to make sure it's paintable before I start squirting paint all over it. Okay. Because having to do it again, there is no profitability in paint. You've just used it all up having to redo it. Okay. That's one of the things that is we enforce and teach and preach that to our folks that we do business with, especially our technical reps. They're fantastic. They know exactly what they're doing. This is one of the steps that they know is essential to getting it done right, getting it done once. So that's the main part of application before you start putting paint on it. Is the primer dry? Is everything clean? Is it smooth? Is there any trash? Can you see sand scratches through the primer? Can you see glue marks through the primer? Can you see Bondo through the primer? These are all things that you have to know to look for before you start spraying paint, because the most expensive part of this application is the paint itself. Okay. So we've got to this point, we got it painted, and the production manager's out there. This got to go. This has to go by 4 o'clock. There's a difference between dry and cured paint. Okay. Most of you know we don't apply vinyl on freshly painted surface for a certain period of time. Some of you have bake ovens, and yeah, it feels dry. It's ready to go. And they go over there and build it. And the guy takes a drill, putting a screw in, and scratches it right across the face. Right. Though that creates problems. You're going to scratch it whether it's dried or cured. Cured paint is pretty resilient to anything. You're going to be able to put a coating over it, maybe some foam that you pack in your shipping department when they get ready to ship it out, protective paint films, things like that. But dry does not necessarily mean it's ready to go. And I think one of the main things, and we try to get this across, the production managers, the PM, the owner, if it gets to that point, you've got to figure out a way to explain to them, look, we're done. Okay, we're done painting it, but it's not dry enough to handle yet. It's not dry enough for you to put all your push throughs in and screw the panels to the pole or whatever, if it's a pole cover. So you have to understand the difference between dry and cured when it's ready to go. Some of these products, we could talk about what products do what and how long it takes for them to do that. Those are other webinars for other days. This kind of touches on all the high points of what we're trying to get across to you folks. But the main thing I want you to get out of this, there are paint professionals out there. There's paint professionals with AkzoNobel, our competitors out there, these distributors that are signed distributors. There's paint professionals in their businesses. Reach out to them. Okay, reach out to them and get involved in there. They have classes. They have training classes. You don't have to go in there and paint if you really don't want to, but once you get your hands on it, you understand a little bit better, what it takes for that sign to get out there. Because the one thing you have to remember, the sign could be built perfectly, could be welded perfectly, screwed together, glued. It's exact replica of what the drawing said. The first thing the customer sees, what does it look like? If it doesn't look good, it doesn't matter about all the other stuff inside. All the lights couldn't work. If it doesn't look good, they're going to reject it. Okay. So I appreciate your time. I know this is quick. And if you have any questions, let me know what you got.
I am checking right now. Okay, I don't see anything in Q&A.
Okay.
And nothing in our chat. We'll give everyone a minute just in case you have something that you might want to ask. Feel free to put it in the Q&A and we will read those out to Mike. We'll give them a minute, Mike.
Sure. Don't be shy. There are never any dumb questions in paint, ever.
All right. Well, we don't have anything. So
Okay.
I want to thank you for your time today and for presenting to everyone. Thank you for everybody that attended. We look forward to our next webinar, which will be on Thursday. And thanks again, Mike, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.